Hello, my name is Juan Antonio Lozada. I'm an immigration attorney in the United States, and I am going to be talking today about different visas that are available depending on your nationality. Many people don't realize that where you were born and where you are a national of could impact your options when it comes to visas to come to the United States. Again, if you are a citizen of certain countries that are oversubscribed, like India, the Philippines, China, Mexico, you are going to have a harder time obtaining some immigrant visas because the length of the wait tends to be much longer versus citizens from any other country. So it is important that you realize what your options are, and if you can distinguish between immigrant visas and non-immigrant visas, and why sometimes it makes sense, depending on where you come from, to begin your process as a non-immigrant, meaning applying for a non-immigrant work visa, for example, or an investment visa, might be a good idea when the wait times for your country of origin, of nationality, tend to be, again, longer than for other countries. So we're going to be talking about E visas, TN visas, we're going to be talking about L visas. We're also going to be talking about AB1s, CB2s, CB3s. We are going to be talking about consular processings and how, depending on where you live, the process could be easier, harder, take longer, or have officers that tend to have or be a bit more strict about certain parameters. So let's talk about some of those. Let's get into these issues. The first thing I want to talk to you about is I want to talk about the different options that may be available depending on your country of origin and nationality. The E visa, E1 and E2, which is a visa that is a treaty, what they call a treaty visa, that allows you to come to the United States often for 2 or 3 years, and it can be renewed of beyond that, but normally is given for 2 or 3 years, depending on the bilat that was signed between your country of nationality and the United States. There is a long list of countries that are treaty countries that you can find online, and it will tell you whether your country of origin and nationality is in the list of countries that whose citizens can apply for an E1 and E2 visa. The main benefit of the E visa is that it requires a threshold of investment that tends to be lower, of course, depending on the type of company that you have and what exactly that company does. If you are in manufacturing, obviously that's going to be expensive to start a manufacturing operation in the US, even if you're coming with an E. But again, if you are in consulting or if you are in software development, that might not necessarily be the case. So it really depends on what you're thinking about coming to the US. What are you thinking about doing when you come to the United States? What type of business are you investing on? How much experience you have? What's your business plan looks like? All those things are factors that are going to impact your ability to be granted this visa. So it's very important that you consider the e-visas, or you consider the materials in this video, but understand they're not substitute for a meeting with an experienced immigration lawyer to discuss exactly which visa makes more sense for your particular situation and your country of nationality. Now let's talk about the L visas. Again, the L visas do not require you to be a national of one country or another. That means that any country, regardless of whether there is a treaty or not, a citizen of that country can actually expand operations to the US through the L1 visa process, can send people, if it's a larger company, to the United States to work in the branch they have here already set up, or if they want to set up a branch. One of the benefits of the L visa tends to be the length of time that it takes normally to get one approved. They tend to be much faster in terms of processing, so that tends to be a good option for companies that want to quickly have a senior executive in the US running things. Again, one of the benefits is that if you have been in that company for at least a year, that's one of the requisites, and you have a senior level position where you not just manage managers, but manage managers that manage people, that is very, very important, unless you are highly specialized and the operations require someone, let's say, with a PhD in chemistry, and that is the only person that, or one of the few that can actually carry out the endeavor of the company in the US, even when they're not going to be managing people. Then that might be an exception to the having layers of management, being a senior manager that is normally required for an L visa. So keep that in mind. We also have other visas like the TN visa, only available for citizens of Mexico and Canada. This is a great visa for professionals if you are in the list of professionals identified in the North American Free Trade Agreement. This could be a nice option to come. The only thing is it can be renewed many times, but it's not a dual intent visa, meaning that you will not be able to jump from that visa to a work immigrant visa. It's very important that you keep that in mind. If you can jump, no doubt, from a TN visa potentially to an H or even an E, but you need to speak to an immigration lawyer, because again, there are certain things that you will need to do before you start that process in order to avoid any issues at the consulate or embassy that will be processing normally UTN application. For Canadian citizens, it's a little bit different. The process can be started from the point of entry. This is not necessarily the case for Mexican nationals, but again, you need to speak to an immigration lawyer to explore these visas a little bit more. And again, remember, you need to be a professional, and that profession needs to be included in the list of professions that NAFTA, it gives this benefit to. So very important. You need to have an employer in the United States if you want a TN that is willing to extend you a work opportunity here in the United States. Otherwise, again, you will not be able to use a TN visa. Now let's talk a little bit about other visas. Let's talk about the H's. There are two types of H's: the agricultural, non-agricultural H-2Bs, H-2As. These visas are normally designed for low-skilled labor. Temporary visas, they come normally to work here in agriculture or sometimes in the industry of hotels and also restaurants during season. This is a visa that we see often. And again, there are some peculiarities about these visas that you need to be aware of. Normally, we provide some guidance on this to employers, not necessarily to employees, because normally the employers are the ones that are requesting this visa. Same thing with the H visas that are designed for professionals. Again, these do not require you to be from a certain nationality, but they do require you to stick to one employer. You cannot come with that visa and then jump to another employer. This is important because it's the same with L visas and the same with E visas. The E visa, the treaty visa that I talked to you about, the TN visa that I talked to you about, all of them marry you to one employer. The particularity of the E visa is that employer is your company. So the E visa, you can only work in your own company. Your spouse could have a work permit that might allow them to work for another company, but you are actually limited to only working on your own endeavor, and you will not be able to work for another employer unless that employer provides a work offer and is willing to do a labor certification and go through the process of gaining you either through an H or through an EB2, EB3, to get you authorized by the Department of Labor to work in a different capacity, in a different company. So very important that we understand that all these visas will have their own peculiarities, things that you need to become familiar with. An H visa, for example, when it doesn't generate automatically a work permit for the spouse. This is something that could be a problem for a professional that is moving to the US, has a wife that wants to continue her own career and does not have an I-140 pending. So there are some exceptions, but again, today we're talking in general about different visas available to some nationalities, and that's why we're going to keep it somewhat general. If you want to know more about these visas, we have other videos then where we discuss these visas. We're going to continue to create content for this channel in English and Spanish. So if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to this channel and share with people you think might benefit from the information you just heard here. There are plenty of things to talk about. Again, there are many more visas that I would love to discuss, and we will continue to record and to create content explaining some of the intricacies of other visas. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this channel. I hope this content was to your liking, and I hope to see you very soon in my channel. Take care. Again, this is Juan Antonio Lozada, and I am an immigration lawyer in the United States, committed to informing you and to empowering you with the knowledge that you need to make the right decisions here in the US. Once you decide to immigrate, once you decide to come here to work for some time, again, knowing the rules will help you avoid problems. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.